Hi, I'm Jay, your DM. I use he, him.
Hi, I'm Embers Tide, he, him.
And I'm Air, he, him.
And this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions and retrieve the treasure of wisdom.
Oh god, it's all boys. It's all boys the whole way down. And down is how it shall go.
We held out. 41 episodes until we got into an all-boy formation. We had always managed to have at least one female presence to bring that energy back in check. And yet, today we reached out. All of the ladies of the podcast realm were like, real life.
Like, real life? We don't have to worry about real life. And now we're here.
That's okay. The garbage we're going to serve you today will be at least lukewarm. We normally start this off not by destroying our self-esteem, but by doing a dungeon crawl.
We're way ahead on that front, yeah.
What self-esteem?
Yeah!
So, on today's dungeon crawl, I actually want to leap up
Put me
front.
in, Coach.
Nope, I'm putting myself in.
Coach is going in. I don't know how sports works. Is this something that happens or not? You have to tell me. Oh boy.
We're the boy cast. We should be the sportsiest sporters this time. Listen, I watched a lot of football in college. So I want to talk a little bit about live Dungeons and Dragons and Gen Con. Gen Con just wrapped up. Gen Con is the annual convention for wargaming, tabletop RPG, that kind of thing. The old school D&D convention. Yes. Luke Gygax, Gary Gygax's son, is a major contributor. He's one of the head figures of this convention. And there is a long tradition and history of this being sort of Gygax's con. And it was sort of the place where D&D thrived when D&D was not super popular and cool like it is now.
Right.
This year's Gen Con was super cool. Of course, Critical Role was there. They played a live game. And Matthew Mercer actually also played a live game with the Dwarven Forge people, which was hysterical. They were literally searching for a insert character who was Matthew Mercer, a jester who was being captured and dragged off in chains. And they were dramatically trying to save Matthew Mercer. And Matthew Mercer was a player at the table trying to save himself in this game, which was very silly and fun. Indeed. It was great. And there were a bunch of other games. A ton of games this week. I don't even know all of them. And yeah, it was just a really good time. There's a ton of content out there from that weekend. 80 hours of Twitch content that was streamed that you can go back and rewatch. So if you are hungry for some live play D&D, some very silly group configurations, go back and check those archives because that place had so many great games.
I wanted to talk about one Joe Manganiello being on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And again, trying to rep this Death Saves Brandy's put together like a D&D streetwear thing. I think that's pretty interesting. I've not known our people to be wildly stylistic, but I think the demographics of people that play D&D are shifting into the neat, cool, with muscles and wearing cool clothes sort of thing. So,
listen, we've returned to the Queer Eye realm. Like, it's okay for straight people to dress nicely again. And it's important that we have these brands that can actually advocate a level of self-care that maybe doesn't get espoused enough in our heteronormative culture.
Very fair. I'm going to continue looking gross, but I've
been watching a lot of Queer Eye, all right?
I think your point is good. Anyway, but what was really nice was to see how much nerdiness it brought out of Stephen Colbert, which I think folks kind of assumed was there, but he knew his shit,
Super Tolkien nerd. Of course he was into original D&D.
Joe starts going on about how he's a Oathbreaker paladin of Tiamat, and he's like, well, of course that would be the evil counterpoint to Bahamut, the dragon god of goodness. And Joe just his jaw kind of dropped. He's like, shit. And he's like, you might be sexier than me, but you are not nerdier than me. Anyway, so it was a really nice exchange. It's probably the most popular medium for Dungeons and Dragons in this modern kind of rebirth of it to have found itself. It was interesting to say the least.
It does feel like, so this is part of my dungeon crawl as well. So I used to study mathematics, and I would build these statistical models, right, where you're looking for different maxima and minima. So like if you have millions of data points, you look for local peaks and valleys because they tell you interesting things about the world around you. This to me feels like a local maxima. This to me feels like a point in the much longer story of role-playing, Dungeons and Dragons, and other games that are part of the sort of tabletop fantasy realm where you're having a peak. It's not like a jump the shark peak, but it's a peak of like, holy crap, the Late Show, like one of the most popular late night shows, has a D20 being rolled on it by one of the guys from Magic Mike, who was a male stripper who's repping a clothing line for Dungeons and Dragons, which he played when he was a nerdy kid and is legitimately really into. And this is just something that a major network is going to cover and show to millions and millions of people. Pretty wild. There's a kind of a surreal moment that felt like victory.
But I don't think we've hit our maxima yet.
No, and I agree. And I think that in the linear algebra world, I'm still solving for the absolute max of this equation, the peak of the absolute point where D&D or whichever flavor of fantasy role-playing you play has truly reached its peak, either of saturation
Stadium
or
D&D
conceptualization.
sporting events.
D-sports! Can I touch on one more dungeon crawl?
You can have as many dungeon crawls as you want.
So, did you all hear about what happened to Mercedes Lackey at Gen Con? Mercedes Lackey, the famous D&D author.
Oh,
I do a read anytime.
Yeah, I do so many readings a day. I do know the name, yes.
So she went to Gen Con, and I guess she got checked into her hotel room, started feeling dizzy, disoriented, and started hallucinating wildly, dialed 911, accidentally dialed 977, and then was like about to pass out before she got taken out. And I guess, I only know from the Facebook post and the people talking about it on Twitter, but I guess there might have been like an outgassing or a gas leak or something like that.
Goodness.
And I think the next day she was back at Gen Con.
Wow.
You go to Gen Con, you get nearly lethal doses of gas, and then you go
you
back
start
to Gen Con.
You start tripping balls, you go to the hospital, and then you go back to Gen Con.
Oh, I don't imagine that was the first time people were tripping balls at Gen Con.
Fair, especially if this is the Gary Gygax con. That's all I'll say. Improve your improv. Which characters are you guys going to play?
I'm going to be Alex Fairwind, human fighter / rogue.
I'm going to be Ezekiel Tate. He is both a cleric of the lively persuasion as well as a former gunslinging fighter.
Ooh.
Really? All right. It's quite a mix.
I would ask you both to have some means of rolling dice, virtual or real. All right.
Well, Embers, I did just receive my Polymorph Crafts Mimic chest today. So let me take 15 minutes to set it up, and then I'll be ready to play D&D.
It did look like a very impressive bit of wood.
Oh my God.
Again, we apologize for the content of this podcast.
This podcast is going straight in the trash. You're going to send me the files, and I'm just going to delete them all and be like, we're skipping to 42.
We never speak of episode 41. All right. Alex and Zeke, you sit nervously in the ornate lobby of Acquisition Incorporated's main headquarters. You've traveled far to get here. Your nerves have built up on you, the reason being that you've been called in to review your last project performance and to submit the forms that your documancer has been working on all night long. Truthfully, though, the day has not been going as efficiently as you told it would be. Omen's administrative representative, who initially welcomed you into the waiting room, has not been answering Sending Stone messages, has left the lobby, and is clearly having some pressing issues in another room. A large warped glass conference room sits about 15 feet away from where you both seated. And she and a few other incorporated team members have been in a heated conversation circling a group sending stone. Looks like they're trying to start a teleconference, and it's not going as you would expect. In another room, a meeting has let out, apparently one where there was a utility service pitching their wares as a vendor. The vendor's run to the bathroom, looking very harried, and hasn't emerged since. Omen has messaged your team, stating that the update of the paperwork must be delivered by hand and reviewed by the office team negotiator, but none of you have seen this person emerge, even though the admin representative has messaged them frequently. It's mid-afternoon now, and you know the office is closing. It's been communicated to you that failing to file these materials, which have been dictated and required, will result in a formal review of your group, and that you may be forced to receive demerits in rank, and you may also have some of your fringe benefits and your retirement fund sacrificed to the corporate to the corporate overlords. So I want to describe to you the waiting room where you sit, but first I'd like to stop and ask if you have any questions.
Are you super married to that accent? I'm looking to Air's character.
I mean, as married to it as I can be, in that it's the only one I've got, in that it's
I feel like if you tried a little bit, you could have any other would be fine.
I mean, that's real nice of you to think that I'd have that kind of breath in my timbre, Alex, but I don't. And
from the very bottom, it's very easy to go up. Literally the only direction. So, just a little effort at all would really go far for you, I think. All right, let's try and figure out what the hell's going on here. We've been waiting around all day.
Well, you're something of a silver-tongued devil there, Alex. I think maybe you could see if we can't, cozy up to reception.
Now, could I learn what exactly am I looking at when I look at this receptionist? On a scale of hot to hot, how hot are they?
Well, so when the receptionist first let you in, they were, I'd say the best way to describe it would be kind of the strong skull features of a Cate Blanchett on the tall, strong, and confident figure of a Sigourney Weaver. However, the administrative assistant is no longer at the reception desk, as she has rushed into the conference room to try and help with the Sending Stone teleconference, which is beginning increasingly to appear to be going very, very sideways.
Oh dear, we've been abandoned by all levels of management. All right, then. I guess the only thing to do is to sneak behind the desk and forge our paperwork so we can leave.
That is definitely one track we could take. The other thing is, I don't know if you are aware of this, but I have a small background in IT. I could probably go in there and maybe sort out the Sending Stone issue so that we could get the receptionist back and working on our particular problems, in between the gunslinging and the holy rites and whatnot. I tweak a few knobs,
You used to work in Sending Stone networking.
It was a high school job, just here and there. I had to make a few bucks.
Fantasy high school, of course.
As fantasy as high school can be, am I right?
It wasn't a fantasy for me. Mostly a nightmare. All right, then I guess we can go in and check in on this meeting and see what you can do, work your magic or whatever.
Here's my reckoning. What if we do both plans? What if you try to forge the documents, and if I see that going south for you, if you give me the signal, I'll mosey on in and try to fix their sending issues.
I like you putting yourself in harm's way first, and then me doing it.
Okay, so yeah.
So how about you go in and do your thing, and then if I see that going sideways, I'll do my thing.
Yeah, well, either I fix it, and the receptionist solves our problem, or I fuck it up, and it serves like a great distraction for whatever it is you're going to do.
Wonderful. I love how you've justified my selfishness as usual. This is working out wonderful.
The Lord of Light, the Dawn Father, he teaches us that, and I just go into a long tirade about Pelor, and as I assume Alex pushes me towards the door of the conference room.
Yes, okay, Paloma's light, I understand. Go ahead and father some dawns in there.
Right, all right.
And so as we see Ezekiel enters into the conference room, Ezekiel, you saw as you walked in, because it's a big, large, warped glass wall. So both of you can see sort of a caricature of people inside dancing around through the warps in the glass. Now that you see clearly, Ezekiel, you see what appears to be a bard preparing a song to try and coax a better situation out of the room. You see one spellcaster clearly in deep concentration, almost trying to commune with what appears to be a carved sending stone. You see a couple of glyphs on the stone. It looks very old, worn, oily, but it's in the middle of the stone, and the administrator looks over to you and says, "Look, we'll settle this. We'll do whatever you want. We'll stay open if we have to. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters right now is we must get this stone to work. The bard has struggled. He's been through all his repertoire. The spellcaster's been concentrating so much I thought he fell asleep. The stone won't listen. We must get this conference going."
And I interrupt right in the middle of a sentence there. I'm like, well, I couldn't help but over here you're having a bit of a time with this here stone. I used to work on these things. If you want to give me a crack at it, I could probably get her humming for you once again. Get them messages out.
As you complete this sentence, you see the stone and the table start to vibrate, and all of a sudden the bard's lute gets levitated up out of his hands, and it floats over to the wall, where it's immediately smashed, Animal House style, into brittle little toothpicks.
I look over to the stone, and I'm like, I would tend to agree, yes. Step aside. Can I walk over to the stone?
Absolutely. Tell me how you'd like to approach it.
I grab the corner of my cloak, and I just start kind of rubbing it down, smearing the oils across its surface. I'm like, you gotta treat it right. Like, this stone looks to be overworked. I can relate.
Ezekiel, the second you touch the stone, even though it's not with your skin, the second you come into contact and make a physical connection with it, you hear in your head the voice of what sounds like a very agitated child. The child's voice says, "I know what you want,
Well, I don't, so if you want to enlighten us both, that'd be lovely.
You just want to take me home. You just want to take me out, and I want to go get ice cream, and I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be here, and you can't make me. You have to listen to me because I'm the smartest one here. I am the boss. You have to listen to me right now."
I'm listening. And ice cream sounds like, it's a doozy of a day out there. Ice cream sounds just about right. Hit the spot.
So this, as you start communing with it, you glance over and you see that the administrator is casting a knowing look your direction, as if she realizes that you're able to communicate with the stone. And she just voicelessly mouths to you, "You have to make it project. It can't leave the room."
Listen here, I think we might be at cross purposes there, friend. What if I were to bring ice cream to you, and you were to project as is required by your role here, and I promise I'll come back, I'll slather you in ice cream.
What kind of ice cream? Do you know what the best kind is?
The one you're about to tell me, no doubt.
Oh no, that's what the spellcaster tried to do. You have to tell me what kind of ice cream is the right kind of ice cream. Right. Because one time there was this hag and she tried to give me ice cream and it was the wrong kind of ice cream, and now I'm here. So you have to make sure you know what the right kind of ice cream is.
Can I lick the stone?
If you want to, you can lick the stone.
I am going to. Would that be a perception check?
Well, if you're licking the stone, it's like you put your tongue on the stone and you lick it.
I'm like, now this is going to be a little bit forward. I do apologize in advance for this, but you did tell me I have to solve this problem, so...
Give me a persuasion check.
Oh, shit.
As usual, a room full of men can't figure out what to do with their stone.
Let's see. 15.
15. With that, the stone says, "What are you doing? What are you doing? They didn't do this. This is weird. This feels weird." And you taste a distant taste of chocolate beneath moss and ammonia, and
The stone is too alive.
Damn my refined palate. I put my hands upon the stone again. I'm like, we both know that the greatest flavor that has ever existed in this or any world in the multiverse is chocolate. Am I right, friend?
plain chocolate.
How was I picking up notes of currant or apricot? Like,
If you'd like, you could give me an insight check.
an insight check. Okay, that one I'm probably better at.
Everyone remain calm. This is a trained professional. They know exactly what they're doing.
Everybody watch this guy lick this rock.
22.
Mint.
Mint chocolate. Gotcha. I lean back in. I'm like, well, chocolate is a rich flavor. It needs something sharp and herbaceous. You understand to cut through all that richness. Mint chocolate.
And in the visual projection, you actually see a fairly dashing red-headed bard, and looks like he's been through a lot. He's sweaty, he's a bit disheveled, and he says, "So, I should apologize. I might have sent back one of the corporate sending stones after it was cursed by a hag. So you probably shouldn't use it again if you can help it. And if it summoned the Oni, I really apologize. But if you're reading this message, good job! Whoever did that, you get a quarter promotion. Well done." Although, I have to admit also, the hag's curse did also enchant the front door, so you guys might have to go deal with that. But the sending stone, if you could talk to it and he'll listen to you, he could really help you out. Anyway, sorry I'm late for the conference, I gotta go. And then the sending stone goes blank. And then Ezekiel, if you're still holding the stone, you hear, "See, I told you, he got into a little bit of a situation with the hag who owned me and put me in the stone, and then the hag put a curse on the stone that's gonna keep all these doors locked forever, so I don't think you can go anywhere anymore. So let's play. What kind of game do you like to play? What's your favorite game?" So everyone in the room has seen that, and instantly you see the administrator rush over to the desk and pull out a red stapler, and at this point go over to the main door and present the stapler to the door almost as an offering. And you see the stapler start to oscillate and lift up into the air. But it was almost automatic, so that's what you see.
Well, you all heard the man, though. Quarter promotions for me and my friend for resolving the issue. Certainly you heard that part.
Probably outrank y'all now.
And just with that, from the secondary door that goes back into the secure area, which was locked and guarded by a very, very large guard, you see two envelopes come out with the documentation that you require to satisfactorily get you out of any risk of demerits. So from that perspective, you're freed from any of the negative outcomes that came from your last job. The only challenge now is, how do you get out of the building?
I mean, if the doors don't open, the place can't close. We have all the time in the world to file this paperwork. This ain't a bug, it's a feature.
And the stone says, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Let's play. What's your favorite game?
Well, hang on, because if the doors are cursed, why can't we just get out through the windows? Windows are the doors of the future, anyway.
If you'd like, you can go investigate the windows.
Alex will go and pull open a window.
Okay, so as you open the window, you see that you're about 40 feet up in the air. It's the top floor of the administrative office headquarters, and
oh, honey, I feel bad for those who don't have levels in Rogue right now. It's a long way down. Fortunately, my acrobatics is very good. I'll be fine. You all, though, good luck. Oh dear. All right, I guess we should figure out how to get out of this place. I don't want to die here, and I certainly don't want to die with any of you people. I guess I'll investigate the doorway. That's going to be a 14.
Okay, so as you go over and explore the door, you try to turn the knob, try to turn the latch. It doesn't give upon your first pull. It's a sturdy, solid door. You can't see any immediate difference from any other door, but
I will crack out my thieves' tools, inspect the lock. Yeah, 26 on thieves' tools.
it takes a bit of time. It is a very, very expensive lock. It is securing the entire office with all its paperwork. So this is a formidable opponent as locks go. However, your skills do not fail you, and quickly the lock gives way. It starts to open a bit, and then you see an aura, and the aura almost struggles with the door to keep it closed. And the stone says to you, Ezekiel, "See, I know, that's what Jimmy always does. Jimmy always likes to play around, and yeah, I mean, of course, you can get the lock open and everything, but if he doesn't want you to leave, then he's not going to let you leave. So what's your favorite game?"
Right. My favorite game, well, I don't have a favorite game anymore. It used to be cards.
Ezekiel, they didn't want your whole life story, just your favorite game.
You know, it was the thing that eventually led me to my Lord and Savior, but fine, whatever. I like Three Dragon Annie, Strange Crystal Boy.
I never played that. I like to play the games. I like to play games outside. I like to play games where you have a stick and a ball, or I like to play games where you tell a story and you make people laugh. If you could make me laugh, that would be the best kind of story, because that's the favorite kind of game I have, is when you tell stories that make each other laugh.
Oh, shit. I turned to Alex. I'm like, the boy Jim wants a funny story. What do you got? Mine are all heartbreak.
Sending Stone, you are looking at the greatest joke in all of Faerun. Ezekiel.
A har har. I'm a very funny, sad man.
Alex will touch the stone to try and join this three-way call.
Joining.
Okay, so the second you touch the stone, Alex, you hear, "Oh, hi, you new friend, what's your favorite game?"
My favorite game is the kind that I always win. I find that to be generally games of sleight of hand or skill. Perhaps a person with such youthful energy as yourself might like hide and seek.
How? I can't hide, cause I'm stuck in here. But if you could hide me, that would be the coolest thing ever!
Oh, I happen to know quite an excellent hiding space. Oh no, unfortunately it's a level down. Do you think you could open that door for us so we could go down there and I could show you?
Let me talk to Jimmy.
We walk over in this weird double carry configuration, holding the stone between us.
It's like two bards and a stone baby. So you start to feel yourselves levitate as you bring the sending stone closer to the door. And then you hear this kind of a gibbering language in your heads, because you're still holding the stone. And with that, the door gives. It releases its tension, and the stone whispers to both of you, "I can't wait to see where you hide me. Let's go!"
We prop the door open with the stone.
I will take this stone down 2 flights of stairs, and then there's a potted plant that is artificial because no one here can be trusted. Behind the potted plant, there is a small, broken off chunk of this vase, and inside of this recess, where water is usually stored, is where Alex hides all of the things that they're not supposed to have in the head office. So Alex will stick the stone down in there, and then with just like one finger left on it. I think it's going to be quite a while until someone finds you. Should I come by and perhaps entertain you again sometime?
And so what you hear back is, "Could you do me one favor?
As many as you need.
Can you put a drop of juice on me?"
Absolutely. Juice. Yes, of course. And we owe you ice cream as well. I'll make sure to retrieve both as quickly as possible. I don't imagine you're going anywhere.
Nope. I'll be right here. Hiding.
Excellent. All right. And then Alex will look around for the cafeteria, I guess.
Yep.
Finding whatever is required. Mint ice cream and a drop of juice. Bringing them back. Jogging up the stairs with mint ice cream and juice. Looks like they just had a breakup or something.
Okay. So
we'll go ahead and come to this thing and like put both in this cavity?
Yeah, so as you do this, you see the stone crack and almost melt a little bit as it releases a little gas, and in the gas you see a face of a small child looks at you and says, "I'm gonna go play hide and seek at the hag's house now," and then it floats away.
You do that, and make sure that you have plenty of fun. And should you ever get lonely there, be sure to return. These boring people could use a nice shake-up every now and then.
I'll be back tomorrow.
Sounds wonderful. I won't be here.
So you take your paperwork, which clears your name and puts you back as a team in good standing with the corporate head office, and you head out happy for your freedom.
Ezekiel, have I ever mentioned that you're terrible with children?
I mean, he was a ghost, though. I'm pretty good with ghosts, so.
You know, when we find the thing that you're good at, that'll be really nice.
You know what?
Ouch.
Someday.
Damn.
You know, Alex, as much as you're a prickly pear, I appreciate your company.
Absolutely. And I appreciate when our company parts. So, I'll see you tomorrow.
I'm mosey off.
Nice.
Scene!
Well done. I wanted to have grown characters interact with a child, which you guys did extremely well.
Always fun.
And I wanted to, so I was thinking about how I was going to do improve your improv and what I was going to do. And I was sitting in an office and I was like, there's got to be a way to make the world around you when it seems boring seem more exciting. So I kind of went room to room and said, okay, here's the teleconference room. Here's where you have your teleconferences. That's got to be transferable. So I tried to make an easy pass at making different everyday things transferable and build in a little bit of risk and danger. You didn't summon the Oni, though, which is good. You rolled well.
This would have become a much longer improve your improv if we had summoned an
Right. Well, it's improve your improv turns into make a new character sheet.
Absolutely. Let's not, though. I'm rarely ever going to play Alex as is. I think that what I really enjoyed about the scene was the kind of comparatively low stakes make for, I think, some of the more memorable adventures.
Right. The doomsday clock is not ticking.
Exactly. So it's fun to just kind of cut jokes and riff on each other when you're in those kind of low stakes situations.
Yeah, I think it teaches you, it gets you experience in inhabiting your character and, problem solving and shooting from the hip in their minds. And a little bit of that I think is good.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Embers.
Thank you guys for improving with me. Improving with me? I'm not sure.
Improving with you is probably the correct way to put
I'll
it.
take it.
We are always improving. So sometimes on this show, we answer questions. And now is one of those times.
But Jay, what sort of questions will we be asking and answering today?
They could literally be anything. I'm overwhelmed.
Oh my god. Today we are talking about multi-classing in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. We're not talking about multi-classing in previous editions because it sucked.
Yeah.
Well, multi-classing has a long tradition in Dungeons and Dragons. It actually dates all the way back to the 1st edition of Dungeons and Dragons, in which only humans could multi-class. Did you know that?
I did not.
In the original versions of Dungeons and Dragons, races were classes. But yeah, anyway, you know what's a weird ability original dwarves got? They could detect gradients of floor. So they could detect when they were moving on a slight gradient to a lower level.
I love it. But that's the kind of granularity in old school D&D that just takes me back instantaneously to that time. I love it.
Yeah. Truly special. But we're not talking about old versions of D&D. That's boring. We're talking about new, hip, modern D&D.
No gradients here.
No gradients here. So, multiclassing in 5th edition is interesting in so much as it is a lot simpler than it was in previous editions of the game. There is no longer a difference in gaining a level no matter which class you're gaining that level in. So, you don't get experience penalties or anything of that nature for going into other classes. It's simply at level up, you choose another class for which you meet the required skill attributes,
right,
as long as you currently meet the skill requirements of your current class as well. So if you're a rogue, I think you need 13 dex, and there's requirements for each class. And you have to meet the ones for the class that you're in and the class that you're going into in order to multi-class.
And it's always a minimum of 13 for the
for
scores
one
specific
stat,
to that class. Yeah.
Yeah, so sorcerer is going to be like 13 charisma. Fighters like 13 dex or 13 strength, et cetera, et cetera.
Monks are actually dex and whiz. Paladins are strength and chaw. There's a couple where you have to have the both, which is a little tricky, but...
Yeah. It's cool that it's so much simpler now, and it definitely incentivizes going down the multi-class route. In 5th edition, it's all stripped away. It's plain and simple. You just get the level 1 things from the new class. And the reason they can do that now is because they've stripped away all skill levels and things like that. Every extra thing has been taken away and replaced it with just proficiency, which is flat and goes up as you level up. So no matter how much you're multi-class, your proficiency is always going to be the same track. And so you'll never really be behind your cohorts because you're going to have the same proficiency bonus whether you're a multi-class or a single class. And that was not the case before. Multi-classing in previous editions was a lot more complicated and could often leave you a lot more weak and vulnerable in certain areas, behind in certain important skill abilities, like how many attacks you got and things like that.
Yeah, I think proficiency bonus is probably one of the subtlest but most ingenious elements of 5e's design.
Divorcing your proficiency growth from your class, making it its own track that just goes up according to your level, regardless of what else you've done, is genius design. It just frees you up so much more in different class design, in different way that classes are built. It's just really so good.
I remember when 5e came out, some folks who were coming from previous editions or different systems had said that they felt kind of like shortchanged that you didn't have independent points to put into independent skills and whatnot as you leveled up. And I was like, no, this the whole reason we're doing this is so that you can get away from all of that and not be harangued.
But yes, so let's get into some questions about multiclassing.
We have a question here from one Psycher Lord on, is it EN World or N World?
EN World.
I thought so. Okay. Was asking, why should I allow multiclassing? He was hoping to kick off a 5e campaign as the DM and was asking for reasons why it should be allowed. It encourages min-maxing, which isn't something they want to promote in their game. And it also seems like if they want to play any sort of mixed archetype, like a Gishy fighter, arcane type, there's the Eldritch Knight or the Arcane Trickster. It looks like they've already kind of planned for a lot of these things with some of the subclass kit that they've given a lot of the classes. So sell me, why should I include multiclassing in my game if I'm not a big fan of min-maxing?
I mean, this is something that me and you have talked about before, Air, where the subclasses that have the flavor of other classes kind of irked you a little at one point because they were just like, if I wanted to combine these two classes, I would just multi-class. There's no reason to have all these other bits of other classes in this one class. Like, it seems weird to take the special thing from another class and put it into your class. I think that was kind of the point you were making at the time.
Yeah, it felt like so much of the design of some of the subclasses felt like they were stealing kit from other classes as opposed to maybe making something unique. And part of me gets it from like a mechanic standpoint. Like, if I want to make a paladin barbarian, well, they've got the strength, but are they really going to have charisma as a major stat? Because they already have to focus on dex and con and strength and blah blah. So it lets them have as Anathar's Guide to Everything, there is the kind of divine fury cleric, the Path of the Zealot. He brings in some of that paladin flavor. They kind of get to do a minor divine smite that scales with their barbarian level on the first attack that connects, all that kind of thing. So I did like that they tried to create kits that made for getting some of the flavor of mixing classes without kind of mechanically haranguing your character. Another good example is the Divine Soul Sorcerer, where you'd have to have Chaw and Wiz and probably Dex and Con as all of your stats if you wanted to do it the multi-class way, whereas you can just focus on Chaw with the Divine Soul and you get some you get healing spells and you get some abilities that buff that and give you some of that cleric flavor to your sorcerer. So
yeah, and when you multi-class wizards, you also have 2 different spell casting modifiers and 2 different spell saves.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It can get really ugly. And we have to remember, one of the important things to bring into this conversation is, like the question asker asked, why should I allow it? Multi-classing is an optional rule. It is not on by default, so to speak. It is a optional rule in the DMG that a lot of people play with, that a lot of people allow, but it isn't core to the game. So the game's design is such that you don't have to multi-class to achieve any sort of flavor that you're after. They by the core conceit of the game, they want you to be able to get whatever kit you want in the core classes. And then multi-classing is just sort of a layer of complexity you can slather on if you'd like. It's the, Hershey's chocolate syrup on your ice cream, right? The ice cream is good by itself, but if you want a little extra chocolate flavor, you just pour that on top. Your ad here. Hershey's chocolate, get at me.
Get at me. Get in them DMs.
I think that there's another reason to consider bringing it in. If you have a lot of people who are very, very much used to the archetypal roles that they've played for, main classing characters in the past, it gives you a different set of mechanical options, another layer of complexity. I could see experienced players or players who really, really drill down into one, love pallies or druids or bards or whatever it is to start looking for new ways to explore that. And this can be a good way to do so.
I will absolutely say that I was of the mind that multi-classing is a min-maxer's dream come true. I know in any characters I've built that are multi-classing, the reason I chose to multi-class was almost always mechanical. My bard that we're playing in our campaign has 1 level of sorcerer, and I picked that because I knew that the 20th level capstone ability for bards kind of sucks.
Right.
So there's no reason not to do it. But there was no story or narrative or RP reason to do it. I took a level of wild magic sorcerer because I like the Tides of Chaos mechanic. I like getting a chance to re-roll D20 rolls on things, much to the bane of Jay's existence, I think.
No, I don't mind it. Listen, I'm okay with multi-classing. I enjoy multi-classing.
I do too. And I've run in a lot of one-shots, a whole bunch of multi-class characters that were just meant to do ludicrous amounts of damage or something. Right. So my sales pitch for an RP reason to allow multi-classing is, spoilers for the first season of Critical Role, Vaxel Dan's character, who basically falls into a pact with the Raven Queen to become her champion. And this was fairly late game. I think they were level 14 or 15 when he did this, but decides to become a paladin of the Raven Queen and rode that out. And that was a very crucial decision, not mechanically, but within the crux of the narrative. And it was great, and it was not something he could do because he had already picked his spec and he had already picked his feats, and they were pretty far along. To actually have a really strong mechanical play to represent his oath and devotion to his newfound god was this late game multi-class into Paladin. And it happened to work mechanically for him, which was nice. But I saw that and I was like, no, that is why you allow multi-classing, because it can definitely allow for great bits of character development and narrative development.
But I think it's also entirely fine to allow multi-classing just because that's what the player enjoys.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, you can play with it a lot of ways, too. Another thing you can do, a DM for a game I had in the past did is they allowed me to multi-class, but I had to decide within a specific window of my character's leveling. So, I couldn't get to level 12 or whatever and then say, I'm going to take a level of this. It had to be part of the early development of the character from a leveling perspective. And I had to it's almost like you set your character's sights down a certain path or not early on. Even though, later in the game you have to make different, or up in higher levels, you have to make different decisions. It was sort of a thematic element, a narrative element, and it tied into a story where all the characters in the group sort of had this one opportunity in a special case. It was kind of do you do it or do you not? And that was kind of cool.
But the question isn't, how do we let them? The question is specifically, Why do I let them? Which tells me a lot about the question asker. To me, this question asker reads a little antagonistic towards the idea. He's obviously mentioning multi-classing and things like that being a move that power players use. Why do we let our players multi-class? Because ultimately, this is a game we play for fun. And if that's what your player wants to have fun, if that's what they find fun, and it doesn't interfere with your game, and it doesn't break your world or anything like that, then there's no real reason to throw a fight over that. There's no pure holy state of D&D that we need to return to that was right and proper and good, and all other ways of play are inadequate in comparison. If this guy gets enjoyment out of being as strong as he can and doing the most badass things he can, let him do those things. If it's not hurting anybody else's fun, if he's not sniping everybody else's turn by telling them what they should do, if he's not telling them how they should be building their characters, if he's just tweaking his little guy as much as he wants to get the best numbers out of the end result, let him do that. It's a game. We're supposed to be having fun. Have fun. If it's not fun, don't do it. But if it is fun, then why not?
I think that naturally transitions into our next question, series of questions, which is how much should you multi-class? And I think this comes from both a mechanics and a character perspective. So here's one person.
Yeah, how much multi-class is too much multi-class?
Yeah, you've had too much. You're cut off. I need you to go home. So they want to have at least 3 levels of swashbuckler, but they also want to have levels of wizard because they have a background in magic that they're keeping from the party. But they also want to be able to sneak, be a frontline fighter with utility casting that's useful in RP situations. I know this sounds like a bard, but I don't really want to have to play instruments. So this person wants to be Quoth, I guess, kind of, without the instrument part. So they want to create someone who's like a jack of all trades. And then someone else just was asking the strict, I think there's more of a mechanics thing. This is 5e. How many levels? This is coming from Orzhov Striker on RD&D. The previous question coming from Makadog. So yes, Orzhov Striker was saying, how many levels is it considered safe to dip into other classes, particularly in 5e? Should I only go 2 to 3 levels in, or can I go without falling too far behind others?
First of all, how many multi-classes is too much multi-classes? I think really it gets to be a bit cumbersome and silly once you go past 3 classes. I can see a very specific build idea requiring a 3rd class to achieve some little tangential benefit. I believe there's a really great mashup that's like Divination, Wizard, and then Bard, and then Cleric of Knowledge that gets you like all of the skill proficiencies and expertise and a bunch of different stuff. And that's like a 3-class combo that requires you to go a bit out of your way. But a 4-class combo is, I think, generally going to become unwieldy and cumbersome. So really, if you can't achieve your build in 3 classes, including all the subclasses in 5th edition, you might want to take a look at your build and really go back to the books and analyze and make sure that you've chosen the correct paths. Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yes, I remember playing... So some of the one-shots I played in were run by Ilum of the Shadow Council, and they were I would almost say narrative-like, because they certainly had fun bits of narrative to them, but they were dungeon stomps, so we didn't have to make long-term characters. Normally they were around level 6, and so I created this, 2 cleric, 2 fighter, 2 paladin that could do, somewhere around 80 damage on average in one hit, and I remember I one-hit one of his ropers. And he was very sad. And that was a very specific, my entire challenge there was mechanical. And I tried to play around with it any number of different ways. I could not see a way to add in another class outside of 3 where it would really give you any more juice. It starts getting, like you said, really finicky and really multi-attribute dependent, really mad, and then you're lost.
Yeah, mad is a term when it comes to role-playing games about a class combination that requires too many ability scores. What's a good mad combo, Air?
Barbarian.
Yeah, Barbarian. Charisma.
I've always wanted to do one, but, Cha and Dex and Strength and Con.
It's just such a heavy lift.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much will multi-classing set you back? I think multi-classing is a good decision mid-game or late game versus early game. If your campaign is only going to go to 6th level, multi-classing is probably going to hinder you more than help.
Agreed.
Because you don't get your good stuff in 5th edition until 5th level. So the more you delay that 5th level, the harder it is to keep up with your allies. And you don't really get your beginner pack good stuff until levels 2 and 3.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
depending on
if
the
you're
class.
starting off at 3rd level and you've got 1 level in one class and 1 level in another class, or 2 levels in another class, then you're neither at your 3rd level archetype for the first class or your 2nd level bump for your first class. So you've got 2 weak classes, and your allies have already got their archetype, their martial archetype. So they're already whatever they're going to be down the road. And they're just going to be better than you for about 2 or 3 levels. And then they're going to hit 5th level first, and you're still going to be just now getting 3rd level stuff. And so you're still going to be behind. They're going to be getting multi-attack and 3rd level spells and things like that. Most classes get their good shit by level 3 for their starter kit. So if you're just dipping into a class, then taking it around 8 or 9 is when you stop getting the core class features. So at around, 7, 8, 9, taking a little 2 or 3 level detour, getting up to level 10 by getting 3 levels in something else. Not going to be that bad. It's not going to set you back that much. And it's going to give you a lot of good stuff from another class, because that 1st, 2nd, and 3rd level are usually the meaty ones when it comes to a class dip.
Yeah, you immediately jump into some of those interesting things when you're able to shift a few levels over. If you're starting at 3rd level, it's one thing, but sometimes you do a one shot where you're going to start later on, and then it just becomes a question of what kind of cool shit is most attractive for you to do, and will you have the most fun playing if your DM is like, yeah, sure, go for it.
There's literally no class that does not get to benefit from action surge. Like 2 levels in fighter to get an extra action once per day is beneficial to everybody.
Because so much of the core mechanics of fighter were core mechanics to all classes in 4E, like action surge and second wind of all of that. You're absolutely right. Fighters are like the best base chassis for a class, I think, because they just...
Yeah, to take 2 levels in a class, if you're just going to take a 2-level dip in any class, for a caster, it's probably sorcerer, and for a melee character, it's probably fighter.
Yeah.
Now, gentlemen, if I may... play devil's advocate here, which also leads into what I think is our next question. What are the potential downsides of multi-classing? I think we've already kind of covered those from a technical perspective, but what would be the upswing of going crazy on multi-classing, taking 1 level from every class with a very understanding DM who will let you forego some of the required ability scores to do so.
Let's say you rolled for stats and rolled a 13 and everything.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
Lucky you. I offer unto you the quintessential example, Patrick Rothfuss's darling character, Drebus Beaster, who, if folks have not watched Acquisitions Incorporated, the C-Team, this is Patrick Rothfuss, who's a famous fantasy author, amongst other things, created a character who is the child of Kate Welch, one of the players in the game, and he is your quintessential fuck-up kid. He is the one that just cannot seem to find his passion in life, and in order to represent his kind of floundering in various fields and not ever really finding his passion, he continues every time he shows up in their game to take a new singular level of a new class.
So he's level 6, he's level 1 in 6 classes.
Yes, he's level 1 in 6 class. I think he's a bard, rogue, paladin, sorcerer, wizard, and some other...
Yeah, he's sorcerer, he's wild magic sorcerer, I know for sure.
Yeah.
He's got rogue, I know for sure.
Yeah,
and
definitely
he's got
bard. And paladin for sure, because he was on a quest. He
got paladin was his last one when he just appeared again. And now he thinks he has psychic power, so I guess he's coming back as a mystic.
Yes, dear God. But he has played that off to such great degree, and he has made that strange choice mechanically into like the quintessential element of his character.
Right, you get level 1 spells and you just upcast them at highest level available with all those multi-classes.
What the hell? Why not? That's what he does. He's just thunder waving people at 3rd level or whatever.
Yeah, he's got like a wizard level, sorcerer level, and a bard level, so that's 3 levels of magic caster. So he's at least got 2nd level spells.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. What are the downsides to multiclassing? If you multiclass too much, you will spread yourself too thin and you will not get your good stuff in anything. If you are a level 1 wizard, you do not have access to the good shit you get at level 2, like your conjuration college or your divination college, divine domain yet, which will prevent you from having channeled divinities and cool stuff like that. If you're a level 1 fighter, you don't have action surge yet, so you're worthless. It's just like, if you have, 4 or 5 classes and you're level 5, then you're not getting to the good stuff of any class. It may fit your character as a Drebus, who's just a fuck up who travels around and changes different things, or maybe like a airhead who kind of has flights of fancies and goes off in different directions. But mechanically, I don't know if it's gonna be fun to be the person in the party who can't cast any spells beyond level 1. You may have 12 levels or 12 different spells prepared, but they're all level 1 spells, and your highest spell slot is level 2. So you're not really getting much benefit out of that vast variety because you still only got 4 spells per day.
And you know that in the process of building this multi-class character, you're going to be looking at all the cool shit that all the different classes can do at different levels. And so you're always going to be a little bit disappointed because you're always going to be like, if I had just done this really hyper complex leveling scheme differently, in this scenario, I would have been able to do that, and that would have been better. So you'll always feel kind of like you've shortchanged yourself in some way.
And then there's the mad thing we were talking about earlier, where you've got to devote so many of your ability scores to different abilities that you're not able to get any good scores in anything.
I do wonder, if this isn't the kind of, if you have a person who is gung-ho on having this, extremely diverse spread, very thin character, and they are devoted to it. Is this the thing, as a DM, you can do, you are wearing a ring of spell storing on every part of your person upon which a ring will fit. Every part.
Again, we apologize for the content of this podcast.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. At early level, it's really bad, but maybe at if you don't go so extreme, if you pick 5 classes and around level 15, now you've got 3 levels in each class. You've got the archetype of each class. You've got a bunch of different abilities. Maybe you pick a little synergistically, so all 5 of your classes are spellcasters. So you have 15th level spell slots available to you, even if you only have 3rd level in each class. Now you're able to cast those 1st and 2nd level spells all the way up to 6th and 7th level slots. So at least you're able to get some decent results out of those spells. And you got all those archetype features that are giving you things to do each round, because, once per day you can do 5 different things. You have your archetype of each class, and you don't want to be annoying to your fellow players at the table as you do everything that they can do.
Yeah, it's a good point. The party synergies totally depend on levels dedicated in classes. So you kind of have to step back from what does your character want to do to an impact it'll have on your character and their abilities and all that to what it does to the party.
It's okay to have a little overlap in a party. I don't know if it's okay to overlap with every other member of your party.
I was trying to envision what this character would look like in their heavy armor, swinging a sword, casting a spell, raising someone from the dead while playing their lute. Suffice it to say, the first word that came to my mind was, this person sounds like an asshole.
Yes.
Yeah.
This person sounds like
This sounds like a person who's going to do a lot of mansplaining during the party's campaign.
Oh, God, yeah.
Hang on, I've got the ability for this situation. You have the ability for every situation.
It's I know, aren't I amazing?
Yeah, no, don't worry. I know create water, so I can make it well, actually.
The circle of life is complete.
All right, I think we have waxed philosophical about multi-classing sufficiently.
For a good long time. Yeah.
What's our closing argument on multi-classing?
It's fun.
I think it's great. Do it.
I think DMs should not be afraid of multi-classing. And for players, my suggestion would just be to think about what seems fun for you. If it's role play, find a narrative beat for that second class. If it's mechanically tweaking your character until it's as cool as possible, then really look into multi-classes and how they synergize and look up guides online. But don't be afraid of multi-classing. It's not nearly as complicated as it may seem, especially with online tools like D&D Beyond to help you keep track of all your ability scores and the way things work.
It does work really well for multi-classing.
and it's super fun and gives you lots of fun options. And really, I think almost every class benefits from it, both mechanically and flavor-wise. So
There you go.
give it a spin.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. This was another episode of Insight Check. As always, if you liked what you listened to today, we would appreciate a 5-star rating on iTunes or any kind of rating. Leave a comment on there as well. We would certainly read it and appreciate it and take it to heart. We thank Amy T. Falcone for our faces. Without you, we would not have faces. And we thank Vinswept for their beautiful song Never Stand Alone, which is our intro and outro music. We appreciate it so much. It is such a killer jam every time. And on @InsideCheckPod, if you like what you hear here, you will get updates about our podcast as well as really cool retweets of great D&D content. And you can also ask us questions at InsideCheckPod or using the hashtag InsightCheck.
Answering your cues from our collective A's. This
Was
Insight.
Check.
There's no judgment in this boy pit.
Again, we apologize. We apologize for this podcast and its contents.
Welcome to the boy pit. It was the worst now.
There's no good judgment.
All right.
God.
Oh boy.